Hello again.
Hello.
Benedetta.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you perfectly.
Okay, good.
Lucia, we're also there.
Hello there.
You can hear you. And we haven't met. There's a third person online that I haven't met.
Oh, yes. It's probably me, Marie.
Marie, oh, good to meet you
Lyon.
and thank you for being with us. Very good to have you.
Welcome.
Ciao, Marie. Ciao. Hi.
Hello.
We'll just wait 2 more minutes.
Mhm.
Smita is also joining us.
Yes.
Smita Mohanty, is that the way to spell it right?
Yes. Yeah, perfect.
Marie Ekem.
Yes.
Okay, Marie Ekem. Okay, perfect. So I don't know when we
Hi,
are
Smita.
online.
Hello, everyone.
Hi. Hello.
Hello, Smita. Good to meet you. Era bom.
Consegues tirar aquela janela?
Boa tarde. Estejam à vontade.
Mas para a frente. Agora está bom.
Estejam à vontade de sentar à frente. Olá, Mariana.
Não, acho que nessa.
Vieste bem acompanhada.
Estás na cara. É isso.
Nunca vi.
Não, ali já estava fora. Pois é isso.
Está na hora. A sessão vai abrir? Okay, it's time. I think we're going to start to broadcast. Please tell me when. Quando for, digam. Almost. Então. Nearly there. Ah, it's likely that we are online. Am I correct?
Okay.
Yes, we're 100% sure to be online. So good afternoon, everyone. If you are watching us as the time the session is going on, if you will watch the recording, good whatever. My name is Manuel João Costa. I'm here at the University of Minho in the campus of Azuré in the city of Guimarães. I'm the Prorector for Innovations in Teaching and Learning and Student Affairs. And it's a huge pleasure to welcome you back to the Arcus Hour. The Arcus Hour is a place to meet, to learn about Arcus, to learn about what Arcus has been doing, the achievements, what has been done so far. And for us at University of Minho, who we are a new partner, it's of course very important to learn what Arcus have been doing, but also to contribute to Arcus, what we'll do. And I'm sure learning from these sessions will be very important for us, but presumably to all other partners as well. Presumably we have also online partners from other universities. So welcome to our very special welcome to our partners from the Alliance and elsewhere. And of course, a huge thanks to our guests who will be here with us today and be presenting the 2 topics that we have here today, which are about inclusion and widening access. and diversity, and the other topic, entrepreneurial university and regional engagement. So I'll introduce our special guests now. We have guests from the University of Padova in Italy, and we have guests from the University of Lyon in France. So I will start by Marie Ekem, our colleague from the University of Lyon, and she's the director of the Entrepreneurship Center Lyon Saint-Étienne, holding a PhD in socioeconomics of innovation and a lecturer in management sciences, specializing in entrepreneurship. She's very interested in business models and innovation. She's a lecturer and researcher, and she was a director already of a master's degree program about entrepreneurship at the University of Lyon. I will be very short in the bios so we can have more time for your presentations and more time for questions. And I'll move on now also to our colleague, also from Lyon, Smita Mohanty. So welcome, Smita. She's an international project manager, currently coordinating the Entrepreneurial University and Regional Engagement Action Line of the Arcus European University Alignment. So she's been participating in the coordination of everything that we're gonna hear. She has a master's with specialization in project management, international relations, and humanitarian affairs. So welcome, Smita. Now we're going to move on to the other topic, inclusion and diversity, and we're going to move on to the other partner, University of Padua. And I'll start with Benedetta Zatti. She has a BA in Russian Studies. She has been doing specializations in second language teaching, distance learning tutoring, intercultural studies, counseling, inclusion and sustainability. She is at the University of Padua since 2004, so for 18 years. And she has moved since 2010 to the Disability and Dyslexia Support Service, where she was a full-time employee until 2017. Now she starts to collaborate in the Right to Study and Tutoring Service, where she coordinated the Culture and Welcome Language and Training Pathways, a project for inclusion of asylum seekers and refugees at Padova University, a very important topic at this moment. So welcome, Benedetta. And last but not least, Lucia Gennaro. Nice to see you again. She's been working at the Projects and Mobility Office of the University of Padua since 2020. And during the first funding period of the Alliance, she's been working in the coordination of the team of the Action Line, which deals about widening access, inclusion, and diversity. And she also is participating in the management team of the Alliance. She has, as main expertise, a lot of international academic and work experience across continents, in particular in the fields of international development cooperation, and of course, the main topic for today, inclusion. So thank you, the four of you. Thank you for being with us. I'll explain how the session will be run. So we will have first 10 minutes of presentation for each topic. I'll try to be very strict and not let you go too much over the 10 minutes, because the session is really about conversations, engaging with the audience, and we will have our lead facilitators that I'll introduce now after I do this housekeeping, who will be asking questions, and people from what are watching online can post questions on YouTube. We will be selecting some of these questions also to fit in, and hopefully with the questions we'll understand better all that the interesting things that the Alliance has been doing in these areas. And so we are looking for a great conversation, and our moderators are the University of Minho's colleagues that are participating in the new proposal for the next 4 years in these areas. And I'll start with Adriana Carvalho. She has been working in the field of internationalization for a little over 20 years. And she has integrated now, very recently in 2022, the Gender Equality Commission at the University of Minho. She has been an international relation office director, both at the University of Minho and at another higher education institution in the country. And she has been involved in numerous projects and actions in a previous position within another European University Alliance, the RUN EU Alliance. So Adriana, also thank you for being here with us. And Again, last presentation, Professor Paula Sampaio, my dear colleague. She's Professor of Quality and Organizational Excellence at the School of Engineering, a researcher at what is called here the Algorithmy Center. He leads the research group on quality organizational excellence at UMinho, and his research is really about research and development for industrial applications. And he also has another interventions in programs of the university, such as he's now in the General Council of the university, and in particular related to this term, for example, the mentorship program that we have, which connects the university with the external, with our external partners in companies that are so important to us. And so I think we now are all introduced. And if I may, I will probably start. Well, the Arcus Alliance has 6 lines of actions. They have numbers. Action line 2 is widening access, inclusion and diversity. So why don't we start with the numbers that have been there all the time? And why don't I pass the floor first to Benedetta and Lucia? And when they finish, I'll then pass the floor to Marie and Smita, and then we'll have the questions and answers moderated by Adriana and Paolo. Is that okay? So Benedetta, is that you?
Fine, thank you. Yes,
Thank you.
I'll share my screen.
The floor is yours.
Now, let me see. Okay, can you see everything well? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you so much for this nice presentation and invitation for this nice Arcus hour to be spent together. I think you all know by now, because you had a meeting with Fernando Galan and Dorothy Kelly, that enabling people and attracting talent from less represented groups, as much as inclusion from kindergarten to school to university and to the world of work is at the core of Arcus, and of course the strategic framework of Action Line 2. When we started almost 3 years ago, the 13 activities that you can see now on the screen were, I can say, uncharted territory for many of us. And knowing that inclusion is a very complex and multidimensional construct, a matter of cultural knowledge building and deep transformation, we have actually tried to found our work on a cross-sectoral, interdisciplinary, research-based perspective, involving as many experts as possible in our task forces, from some vice rectors to professors to researchers to students, non-academic staff, and also external stakeholders, which is mostly important. A great deal of conceptual work has been done to set up solid foundations. It has been actually necessary to negotiate meanings a lot and to find a sort of common vocabulary among us. And what I can say now, after 3 years almost, is that now we understand each other pretty well. And if not all the time, most of the time, we don't need so many interpreters and translators to actually speak the same language about the issues that you see now on the screen and that which are the core of our action line. It has been a very long, time-consuming, deep shared learning process. But now I'm really happy as chair of this action line to say that when we talk about our topics, when we develop our activities, there's not anymore such a need of all the time negotiating and being awkward with the topics we are tackling. So what we have actually achieved so far is, first of all, a very extensive, comprehensive mapping of our good and bad practices, and also of the services we have in place in our 7 universities. We have also started to share a common knowledge. We have created synergies not only among ourselves, the 7 universities within Action Line 2, but also among action lines for some reasons and topics, and with another alliance, Uliseus, for the topic of equity, diversity, and inclusion in a cross-fertilization process for policy development at the European level. This is our objective, because as you will see later, we have 3 charters in Action Line 2, which we are developing. Also, we have worked a lot on university community engagement. More than 200 people have been involved in our action line. And this is just without counting the external stakeholders, the organizations we have actually had meetings with and lots of interactions with. And you can see that when in the line outreach, we have really made a strong effort to reach out to international organizations. You see here UNHCR Italy, with NGOs, for example, SOPA in Vilnius, with some students, organizations like the Student Engagement Team in Padova, with some third sector organizations, volunteering organizations, public services for job market transition, and one of the most important with the Delegación de la Educación de Andalucía in Granada. What we've come up with, and it is in our outcomes nowadays, are policy proposals, recommendations, guidelines, models, frameworks, which are there available for future common strategies, for future structures to be shared and built up together, for future plans, and for transformational actions in all our contexts. So meaning teaching, learning, research, community building, and so on. And this will be the next step to be done. One of the most challenging features of Action Line 2 is the narrative of addressing citizens over a sort of timeline of their relationship with our universities. So before access, at entry, during and after university. And as you can see, at the basis of the architecture of our 13 activities, we have the Arcus Charter. Now, this is a final draft, I can say, a very comprehensive document with an introductory framework, the Caring University, with a holistic view of sustainable development. Then we have a section of transversal recommendations and 3 sub-charters dedicated to the 3 themes you see at the bottom of this graphics: inclusion, gender equality, and sustainability, meaning environmental, planet sustainability. Our task forces have developed 13 different actions tackling the issues of a very diverse student and staff population and body, from the very beginning of their lifespan to the very end. So starting with preventive early career education guidelines and activities, going for with inclusive children, universities, models and guidelines again, train the trainers, guidelines for women to STEM activities. And then during the pathway in the middle section of this graphic, so staff development for the diverse and inclusive classroom, in particular with the higher education online training, which we have actually and are still developing in the 7 universities, involving more than now 73 people altogether between professors, researchers, students, staff. And then going to the transition towards the world of work, so with public engagement activities for job market transition. And as you can see, we are keeping in mind that there's a huge heterogeneity in our context. And so we are tackling all these issues, keeping in mind refugees, students with a refugee background, students with intellectual disabilities and not only physical or whatever disabilities, learning disorders, senior students, gifted students, and so on and so forth. This approach, the narrative that I'm showing, has proved to be very successful. To have a deep insight in what happens and maybe in what should happen before and after university, if we really want to enable people with the proper tools to be able to face the current and future challenges. to do this, we have now, as I was saying, lots of guidelines, models, and frameworks. For example, we have a guidebook ready to be published on the Arcus portal with all the support networks for inclusion which are present nowadays in our 7 universities. And we have also tried to set up a strong but flexible at the same time recognition of prior learning procedures model based on the Lyon model. And we are constantly trying and making the effort to have a strong public engagement, because we really believe in a quality participatory university pathway and smooth transitions for anyone. So how have we done that? We've done that through monthly board meetings, countless task force online meetings, loads of webinars about all the topics that I was mentioning, 17 staff trainings altogether, one short virtual mobility for senior students, and one is upcoming in September in Granada. Then various conferences, of course, during the Arcus Academy Week and in Vilnius, an extra webinar on digital accessibility, which was not part of the Action Line 2 tasks, but we thought would be absolutely necessary because there's no inclusion without accessibility. And also with some advocacy activities. Whenever we have had the possibility, for example, with the Women in Academia Across Europe Arcus debate, and with the various public statements on international days like the Pride Days, the World Refugee Day, the International Day of Women and Girls in Science. This is, like, on the whole, and very generally what we've come up with, our outcomes, our outputs, which are now in our treasure chest, treasure drawer. On the left-hand side, you can see the Moodle platform we have started all our work with, and which is full of scientific literature, international and European documents and recommendations, lots of mapping, all the mappings we've done, all the info we've collected in our 7 universities, and all the material which was like the basis and the start point for our work. On the right-hand side, you can see the drive space we are working now, which is work in progress. Of course, I won't have the time to go into details for each of the 13 actions, activities, but I can assure you that in each of these folders, you find something which is actually very consistent in terms of quantity and also, I believe, quality. Now, a peer review process is going on. Lucia and I are supervising the work of the 13 task forces about the outputs you see here. And if you want, Lucia and I, we are here to answer some maybe questions about the further details. I hope I stick in the 10 minutes.
Yes, you did. Yes, you just slightly, but we'll be inclusive. We'll be inclusive here.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much,
Thank
Benedetta.
you.
Thank you very much, Lucia. I'll now pass the floor to Marie. If am I correct, or to Smita? Smita, please go ahead. Thank you.
It will be Smita. Yeah.
I will let maybe Marie conclude. I will share my screen. Is it okay?
No, you're not seeing. Oh, now yes.
Yes.
Okay. Perfect. I will try to be brief and maybe spend a little more time also on the questions later. So feel free to get back to us on certain points. I've already had the pleasure of exchanging with some of you previously. So just to briefly present to you what we have done, I actually participated in the application process also. So I've been there from the beginning for AL5, Entrepreneurial University and Regional Engagement. The main objectives of this action line were to stimulate entrepreneurial mindset within the university setting, not just through academic, but also amongst the administrative staff and so on, to bring a new way of looking at things and doing things. We also wanted to reinforce regional engagement, and how we wanted to do this was built on complementary strengths and kind of benchmark what each partner had been already doing, and take the best of everyone and put it across the consortium. This is a general overview about the whole Arcus AL5 actions. I will maybe try to switch to. So we have different levels of actions. So we start with what we consider was more at a governance level, transforming the university so that it becomes more entrepreneurial. And this we approached it using a tool that already exists made by the European Commission, which is the HE Innovate self-evaluation tool. So we used this and we did a workshop. We used it at local levels. Then we put together all the information to kind of deal with it at a consortium level. And based on that, we have created a roadmap for becoming an entrepreneurial university for Arcus to implement. So that's at a governance level. Then, of course, in order to do all this, we had to create like an entrepreneurship community. So that was the 5.2 action, establishing really a network of staff and mentors, which not just the AL5 board members, but also going to the experts for each sub-action and creating sub-task forces for each action. Next, we have a 3-level process, which is more for students and going, so starting from building awareness on entrepreneurship through like an engaged community challenge, and then enhancing the knowledge and giving tools and know-how to the students. This we did through a virtual company creation challenge, where we had teams participate from each university in like a pitch competition, workshops, and kind of mixed together networking. And then we have, of course, a winner at the European Arcus level. And then the 3rd level is more oriented business and internationalization. So this was specifically for the entrepreneurs in our incubators who were more prepared for that last step. We proposed this mobility program that we call ILE, which is the International Soft Landing for Young Entrepreneurs, where they get to visit a partner incubator for a week or 2 weeks or a month. It's up to them to decide how long. And ahead of that visit, they also have digital coaching sessions already with the mentor. So they kind of prepare their visit. And then once they're there, the partner opens up their local ecosystem, meetings, specific needs, and so on. So it's a rich experience for these young entrepreneurs who are thinking of potentially a mobility, internationalization for their project. And then we had a level which was more dedicated towards the technology transfer and PhDs. So it kind of changed also through the course of doing the action. Initially, we were heavily orienting it towards developing and exploit technologies that exist in our TTOs and trying to attract alumni back to the EU. But this was a bit more complicated than we envisioned when we wrote the application. So then we also started focusing on raising awareness on entrepreneurship amongst the PhD students and postgraduate students. So this was done like a twinning action with Action Line 6. I don't know if you've already met them, the research action. And for example, we had a career week outside academia for PhD students to raise awareness on today. There are very few slots available in the academic world. So to open up their mind to other possibilities and to show them that doing entrepreneurship is not just about being a CEO. You can be a CTO. You can also continue doing research and so on. And it's also not just about creating entrepreneurs. We also give them tools and workshops where things that they can apply, creativity, problem solving skills that they can apply also in their research field. So yeah, it's about giving them this knowledge of entrepreneurship and how to be entrepreneurial more than becoming an entrepreneur. And then we have this regional engagement aspect. We had a focus on European internships for SMEs. We then opened it up to all not just SMEs, but also our socioeconomic networks, because we started getting also offers from our socioeconomic networks. So we have a platform on the Arcus website where we publish offers coming from our partners. And we also developed a guidebook for mobility, international mobility. We also had a small twinning with Action Line 2, because we have sections. Each university also highlighted what they have for mobility with vulnerability. So we also had that included into the guidebook for students who are looking to do an internship or a mobility to one of the partner universities of the consortium. And I forgot to mention in 5.4, we also, the previous action, we also have like a network, which links also to the last action, a network between the TTOs. So we put our TTOs together so that they start discussing about how they do their benchmarking, their best practices, and so on, sharing success stories to see how they got to that point, and also to learn from each other. And we had one transversal action, which was to encourage, foster women entrepreneurship. We had, for example, a roundtable with women entrepreneurs discussing how they have access to financing and so on. So this is a general overview. This is just to give you an idea of the status, how far we've come in the 3 years. Of course, as you may be aware, we hit COVID right in the beginning of the project. So some of the actions were a little slowed down, or we had to get creative with the actions. But overall, I think we kind of managed quite a bit of what we wanted to do. Today, we've learned more about each other, about how each incubator works. And also, we've done benchmarks and surveys on all the content that exists around entrepreneurship in each university, because the whole idea was not to recreate something, but to use the existing and go ahead with that. Some of the highlights, some numbers, I won't go into all the details, but we've had like 6 mobilities between incubators for entrepreneurs, which has been very rich for them. We've had lots of views about these PhD entrepreneur videos, because in addition to the career week, we also created these video portraits of PhD entrepreneurs who present a little bit about what they do and how they got there and what made them become entrepreneurs, in addition to being a PhD or finishing a PhD or being a researcher. And we see that there's a big interest in this, because more and more the students have to think about what is next for them after they graduate. We've had business culture webinars. We had a summer school where we had the occasion of discussing with Minyo, where we had all the incubator staff members join and discuss, share our best practices on different, it could be about how we implement design thinking in our programs, or communication and so on. Yeah, and what we've developed is basically a community which is really strong in entrepreneurship, because within our incubators got really close together, and our TTOs also. So we have this network that we've built through the sharing of experience and creating these new programs together. We've also created different modules, open badges, micro-credentials, workshops to raise awareness on entrepreneurship, to train peers, students and PhDs on entrepreneurship, and some summer schools, some digital content that we've put together, mutualized. And we're also trying to target the strategic aspect of the university by really implementing or pushing becoming an entrepreneurial university right at the top-down level. I won't go into all the details of the outputs. Again, it's all in the common drive. So I think maybe you already have access to the OnCloud, or you will get access to the OnCloud. We have all the outputs there, but basically we have developed tools, resources, guidebooks, videos that can be used for the different levels. So it can be about raising awareness, to practical tools and know-how, internationalization, and we are also developing, for example, next we have in September a summer school for non-entrepreneurial staff members. So using the design thinking tool, but for a topic which is very common, which is using how to make digital courses more interesting. So the call is open right now. So it's to show that entrepreneurship is not just about creating businesses and businessmen. It's a whole mindset that can be useful in transforming an university. And I think that's the end of my presentation. Marie, do you want to add something?
No, just thank you, Smita. And actually, for the next application, can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. For the next round, I think that the challenge will be to draw upon the actual networks, and because we don't have an action line, a dedicated action line, and actually also to engage a discussion about what do we want at the alliance level with entrepreneurship. What does it mean to become an entrepreneurial university? Because I think we have different views and different understandings, or maybe different goals behind that. And actually at the lower level, between incubators and TTOs, it's working. That's okay. Then if we want to go a step further, then it's at the top level that people should discuss what does it mean to become more entrepreneurial as a teacher, as a student, as a staff member. What does it mean to innovate inside the universities, and so on and so on. So that's it for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you both, and thank you, Marie, for adding a future-looking perspective. Now it's time for questions. It's time for the audience to ask questions. It's time for, if you are on YouTube, also to ask questions. And it's time for me to vanish from this session and pass the floor to my good colleagues, Paulo and Adriana. So the floor is yours. Thank you for moderating this session.
Thank you so much. Thank you first for the impressive record of activities. Yes, this has been a lot of work, and we are really eager to catch up with some of the tasks that we need to do, and to anticipate what would be the future project and our active participation in it. So first, I would like to ask the audience if somebody would like to ask something. Okay, we have. Would you like, Felipe, please? Can you introduce yourself, Felipe? And
okay, can you hear me? Hi. Well, Philippe Rocha from the University of Milan, of course. I'm the director of the Support Education Services. And
I'm not sure the microphone is working.
Oh.
I think we can hear you from the front microphone, but not the.
Okay, now.
It's okay now? Okay. Okay, I'll start again. So, Philippe Rocha from the University of Milan, of course. I'm director of the support from the service to support education. And it would be a first question to Benedetta. And about considering the diversity and the cultural diversity of this alliance, I believe that one of the major challenges would be to mainstream some of these themes that we have about inclusion. And I would like to know which was the real challenge to develop this and to mainstream this mindset of university for all, thinking about the context of learning in particular, of universal design for learning in particular. If you have worked a little bit about this particular team, and also if you have some type of toolkit that would be applicable to all the universities of this alliance. We have been checking out a little bit around Europe, and we check out the context of the Dublin City University. They have a toolkit for inclusive higher education institutions that we believe that it's quite interesting, because it's really it looks a little bit about all the stakeholders around the university, not just the university. We're talking about the universities, external stakeholders, but also staff, academic staff, students in the center always. But it's quite a nice approach. So Benedetta, I'm sorry if I'm if I wasn't very clear, but it will be to understand a little bit which were these challenges in this context.
Yeah, thank you for your question. First of all, one of the biggest challenges we had was that of moving our minds from thinking about special needs, people with special needs, and special services for people with special needs, which are offices centralized very often, which take charge of the special needs and any needs. And they do that, but they are the only ones to do that. So there are maybe efficient services. There's a sort of efficient integration, because every time you have someone with special needs, you go and find the reasonable adjustments, you find the solutions, you solve some problems, you adopt some kind of measures, you use assistive technologies or whatever, but that's it. And you don't engage the whole community, teachers, colleagues, meaning students in classes, tutors when you have tutors, or any other staff, even laboratory technicians, even language technicians, and so on and so forth, in actually co-participate, collaborate in building up inclusive teaching and learning contexts. And that was the challenge, because most of the people most of the universities nowadays are actually, I think, stuck in that kind of traditional model. They have efficient services, but they haven't made the step forward towards what you were suggesting, which is absolutely the way: universal design for learning and teaching, universal design for all, training the trainers, training the community to be able, each in his own or her own empowerment and possibility and role and function to collaborate. So, I mean, I know I'm not part of the community of practice at the University College Dublin, but I've been there and I know how they work. I think that's an excellent model, first of all, because they have really endorsed a strategy, a comprehensive strategy. So they have a document which is there to say what is to be done, who is going to do that, what responsibility these people have, and everyone in his own and her own function, and the targets, of course, the deadlines and whatever. And I think this strategy is what we need to do now in Arqus, after having reflected a lot and developed a knowledge about inclusion, developed a common vocabulary, developed the guidelines and models. We need a real practical and very clear, comprehensive alliance strategy, which of course has to start from policies, because and then going down, but at the same time involving from the very beginning the bottom-up approach, involving stakeholders, students. And there's a lot of training to be done. We have started, as I was trying to show you, to tell you in a few minutes, we have started with this higher education, inclusive higher education online training for professors, for staff, which is a basis. It is what we had at our disposal. It was created at Padova University in Italian and translated into English to make it available for the whole Alliance. Now we have 73 people who had never been before in such a training and are suggesting very important hints and ideas on how to carry on in the development of this training, adding topics, adding issues, tackling different subjects which are of interest of each university. And I think that's fundamental. And that, the creation, for example, of general courses on diversity and inclusion, on gender equality and social justice, on whatever topic related to the ones I was talking about, is also very important. General courses for any kind of students coming from any kind of study pathway, study course. We have implemented 2 in Padova in the last 3-4 years. They have been very successful, very well, full of people, very well participated. And they have also demonstrated how students become real change agents after having through these pathways. So this is my first answer to what you were asking. I don't know if I have been clear enough or.
Yes, perfect. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Paulo. I'm Paulo Sampaio. I will lead from University of Minho. I will lead the work package number 8. That is the similar to Action Line 5. So I'd like to congratulate you all because you have done a great job in the first project. And my questions are going to Marie and Smita. I have 2 specific questions. I know that a lot of people here want to put you questions, but I need, as the future leading person of the work package, I want to know more. It's about the impact of. I have seen that you have done a lot of actions in the action line, but I would like to know the impact of those projects in regions. If you were able to assess that, if you were able to assess the impact in the institutions itself. And the second part of my question is related to the issues and risks to avoid. What do you recommend, Paulo? Do not do that. That is my second part. So issues, risks to avoid, obstacles that you have faced during the project. So I'd like to hear you about, give me some recommendations about don't do that. Thank you.
Okay. It's a tough questions about the impact. Actually, as Benedetta said about diversity and inclusion, we had the same issues at the beginning because the way we organize entrepreneurship and the level of our entrepreneurial policies or tools and incubators and so on, it was really heterogeneous at first. So it took time, a lot of time actually, just to understand how we work, what do we mean by entrepreneurship. For example, in Lyon, we have vice rectors for entrepreneurship and innovation. In other universities, entrepreneurship is the word that is absent in at the strategic level. So we needed to know each other and also just to identify people to include in the project, to involve in the project, because at the beginning, and that's maybe a priority for you, just to have the good people involved in your action lines and to manage, but that's also very tough, to have institutions give them time to work on Arcus, because it's always extra time, and since it's other work, it's very difficult to have people involved on the long run. So you can have people participate on small seminars, on small actions, but to have people involved during the whole process, it's a bit difficult. So just it's a mix between your 2 questions, but the impacts arrived maybe a bit later, and we first had to look inside our institutions to know each other and to have people join the actions. And then about impacts, let's say wider impact inside our institutions, maybe the major impact is about TTOs, because in many universities the TTOs are external. So first we had to to have them speak together and to engage in monthly or almost monthly discussions. So that took 2 years. And then let's say that in the first application, I think actually in Action 5, it was very difficult to get academics on board. We have the majority of people working on our action is staff. And actually, if we want to have a wider impact, then we need to engage academics because they are teaching, they are designing the master degrees and all the curriculums and so on. So without academics, it's a bit difficult to have a big impact. And so it's to make them know about what we are doing, why it's an opportunity to do a better work or to have better student engagement during classes and so on. So there are many, actually, I think, nice opportunities, but also, and I come back to that a lot, to give people incentives or recognition or time, or I don't know, but to give staff and academics counterparts or incentives to engage into actions. Otherwise, I think it will be very, very, very difficult. And maybe you will face the same difficulties as we did. So that's a message for the top.
Thank you.
Again.
Smita, do you want to add something?
Regions.
Yeah, just to add to that, I think today in the academic setting, it's not true for all university settings, but some more than the others. Entrepreneurship is regarded as an opposition to academia. And so there has to be some action into explaining what is entrepreneurship, what we mean by being entrepreneurship, and not just the business aspects of it. But also today's universities are changing. They need to find other ways of sustaining themselves. So it's also about becoming entrepreneurial university and seeing it as an opportunity to create more sustainability for universities. And I totally agree with Marie, find the right people right in the beginning, but that goes with giving them time. So yeah, we were lucky that people in the incubators were very willing. I think that's the difference between like a topic like entrepreneurship and maybe research and other things, where you have already lots of people working on it and big departments dedicated to it. Whereas entrepreneurship, we had sometimes 2 people in the university trying to push the whole entrepreneurship agenda. In addition to that, trying to participate in Arcus. So that became very complicated because there are already very few resources dedicated to this topic. So have a kind of a top-down approach of validation and giving people access to resources at time to participate.
Thank you.
Okay, it's my turn now. Benedetta, you have answered it slightly, yes. We collected some questions from colleagues that will be involved in this work package in Action Line 2. And you have answered when you mentioned that you conducted an extensive mapping of the services, the practices, the procedures. And I believe that this data, this information allowed Arcus to understand exactly what diversity and inclusion meant for all the Alliance members. In our case, Benedetta, did I understand correctly? So we need to build on what you've done in this first project in order to carry out activities for the second project. Would it be interesting for us to collect information on Aluminius as well, yes, and complete this mapping that you've done for the first 7 universities? And that would allow us to understand exactly what is the status quo regarding the interpretation and regarding the conclusions that you've reached in this first exercise. I would like to hear your opinion on that, yes, and to see how much we can prepare somehow this understanding, this portfolio of University of Minho's inclusion and diversity topics.
Thank you for this question. And if Lucia is okay about it, I would ask her to actually answer the question, since she's very much into the new proposal, the Inclusion Hub especially. And so I think she's the best, probably the best between us to.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much first for inviting us for this very nice initiative. We really appreciate it. So it's a learning. We're like a consolidated alliance by now, but we really are learning all the time. So thank you for the opportunity. I think your question needs a little like forward. As you probably very well know by now, the structure of Arcus 2 is quite different and much more complex than was Arcus 1. So we are going to have a lot of changes, which doesn't mean that things that we did in the first Arcus get lost, because nothing, of course, will get lost, but they will just be sort of reorganized. And what we thought for Arcus 2 was to sort of rethink the narrative that Benedetta was describing earlier, which is to work sort of in the life, in the time span of a student's life in the university, and try to think of what would be the best, the most efficient structure to mainstream inclusion in throughout the Alliance. So what we came up with was the creation of this sort of hub, which is a sort of operational center, a sort of octopus with like structural connections with all the other work packages, so that we are sure that we do not do anything like on our own, but that all our activities are very closely connected to what everyone else is doing. So we will work with those dealing with teaching and learning, and we will work with those dealing with entrepreneurship, those dealing with digital Arcus, etc., so that all of these dimensions and these things that the Alliance is dealing with are colored, are take into account the inclusion dimension. So this is the intention that we have. So back to your question, I guess that maybe the best thing would be to maybe go through all the mappings that we've done, but then maybe I guess we can do things better in the future. So I don't think you need to prepare anything before we plan exactly what we want to do in the future, because we need to move forward as all together with the new partners. So I don't think it's time now. It's a little premature, I think, right now to go beyond knowing what we've done so far. And then I think we will move on in the future, because I think ourselves as well, we are founding members of the Arcus Alliance, but we still have a lot of work to do. So we can start a new phase together. Yeah, that's my idea. I don't know if Benedetta wants to add anything.
Yeah, no, you suggested rightly to go, maybe they could go through the mapping we've done, but in the final reports, let's call them reports in general, they can be guidelines, models, or whatever we have. Sometimes you have a clear reference to the mapping done when it was useful to have that clear reference. And so saying, okay, we started from here, we were this and such, and now we are moving for this reason and this reason, and these are the guidelines we are proposing. Sometimes the mapping has been just the our internal kind of knowledge base to develop what we are reporting in the final in the final outcomes and final outputs. So it will be sufficient, I think, to go through the final outcomes and outputs, to read them and have an idea of the process done and the ideas contained and the reflections done and so on and so forth. And I think that could be a way to kind of in this moment align in a way, or maybe say, okay, we're different, and being able to say in which way you are different and why, and teach us, because we need to learn, as Lucia was saying, and we learn constantly from the differences. I mean,
yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's been quite clarified. Yeah. Thank you for this input.
Yeah, we have time for one or two more questions. Yeah. So we have 5 minutes more, and I know that we have here people that wants to put some questions to Maria and Smita, and I will. Can you hear?
Hear me?
Yes. Okay. Hello. First of all, thank you for your presentation. My name is David Silva. I'm the coordinator of the Special Projects Office, and we are responsible for managing R&D projects, big projects between universities and companies and industry. My question is for Smita and for Marie about regional engagement, and we notice in managing this kind of projects that sometimes the mindset between the mindset of the university is very different from the mindset of the industries. Do you have some advice? Do you have some quick actions that we can implement to approach these two mindsets? Because sometimes the university is more concerned with the academic part, with publish some papers, and the mindset of the industry is completely different. They want solutions, and they want the solutions quickly. Do you have some kind of advice, some kind of strategy that we can implement in these kinds of projects to approach these two mindsets? Thank you.
Yes, it's also a difficult question. I think that if we try to directly work, have researcher working with industry or with companies, it might be a bit tricky. But actually, from what I know, and I think we have also different contexts in our country, so I may speak more about France. It's the problem is that there are not frequent or continuous discussions between industries and research. And it's not only that industry go fast and that researchers are slow. I think it's sometimes they even do not want to collaborate because they just don't know each other. So they think that they have nothing to do together, or that industry might orient research, and that research would lose its, I don't know, its freedom, and that's a major problem, the freedom of academics and so on. So make research useful is a big fear, I think. So maybe by just sometimes thinking or designing actions to make people meet and work together, but on maybe non-important stuff, such as, for example, when we have when we have the virtual company challenge with the firms, virtual companies created by students in the jury, just to invite academics plus people from industry, and to have both academics and managers, let's say, just share their ideas about a third project, or just to imagine solutions, but without any intention to implement it at first. So it's sort of like free activities. It's just a way to make them know each other without, I don't know, very high stuff at stake. But that's the problem. If we, I think we need to make them just know each other, and then they will be maybe more willing to collaborate, or they will have less fear to work together. So that might be the first step, I think.
I discovered a word that can fit both worlds. It's the word employability. Because one of the missions of the university is also to prepare the students for the future. And so employability and preparing them, internships and so on, it's becoming more and more important. It's becoming compulsory in many of the master's programs and so on. And entrepreneurship can help bridge that gap, because by pushing forward an entrepreneurial mindset, you're helping raise the employability of students, and that in turn helps the students when they go out into the world and into society. So it's a win-win for the socioeconomic sector and the university setting. So yeah.
Thank you, Smita.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I think it's the last question, and it's about the student engagement, Benedetta and Lucia, and also for the others, because this is a transversal issue. You mentioned about the structures, the service, the support services of the institutions. We talked about the teaching staff, but the students are obviously, we have a very diverse population, student population, and many non-traditional student groups as well that we want to have on board in this very interesting project. But what are the fora for them? How can they actively contribute towards the Inclusion and Diversity Hub? And how can they be more proactive towards the inclusion and diversity components within Action Line 2 specifically?
Thank you for the question. That's a tough one. So I think the new proposal just gives us a lot of possibilities in this specific issue, because the University of Minho is co-leading the work package on students. So that's a very interesting thing. And even more interesting is that it is co-leading it exactly with the University of Padua. So we're very happy to be together in this endeavor. And I think as we're also co-leading inclusion, the work package about inclusion, I think there will be a lot of possibilities to work together towards more inclusive and a more I'm not saying welcoming context, but facilitating context for to foster students' engagement. And as you were mentioning, we have a very wide and necessarily very diverse student component. So it will be one of our big objectives to make sure that they all enjoy the same opportunities in the Alliance. I have no clear ideas as for now of very practical actions we will take. But I have this general idea in mind right now. I don't know if Benedetta would like to add anything.
Maybe just a suggestion, because I have the experience of, I've had the experience of setting up our 13 task forces. And I was mentioning trying to engage many people with any kind of backgrounds in the university community. I know how time consuming, how difficult it is, how much we need to actually persuade them that it will be worth it, that it is important, that their collaboration is fundamental, that we need them, and we need them from the very beginning. We won't start any design of anything, any planning of anything, any project without them. It's like no one behind. So we really need to spend the time we have ahead, hopefully after July, engaging the communities. We need to think about communication campaigns or whatever we need to reach them, and to have them there, and to persuade them that the effort is worth it, because it is a huge effort. It will be a huge effort for anyone being there. But I'm sure that we can manage. I mean, we have the passion and also the background now to be able to persuade them and to have them on board.
So if you all allow me, the conversation is good, and we'll have to close the session. I'm sorry. But I would not like to close without giving you a huge thanks. Benedetta, Lucia, Marie, Smita, it was a privilege to have you with us, sharing your wisdom of practice and all that you know with us. Thank you very much. Thank you to our panelists for today, Paulo and Adriana. Thank you for those who joined us here and online. The next session of Arcus Hour will be in a totally different topic. We will have the session related to, and I want to get the name right, and the name is Action Line 4, Multilingual and Multicultural University. We'll have a colleague from the University of Padua also with us. So please mark your calendar, the 14th of June, 2:30 p.m. our time, 3:30 p.m. Central European time. We look forward to having you all with us. And yeah, until the next Arcus Hour. Stay well.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. You too. Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.